This week's prepping data is another click-only challenge, which means that you can't write any calculated fields or calculations. So it's a great place to start for beginners because it forces you to kind of explore the functionality of Tableau Prep and how great it is really for being able to solve problems without having to rely on calculations. So it's a really great challenge. So I'm going to split the solution into two parts because it is quite long, but I just want to have enough time to explain the things that I'm doing and not rush through them if you are a beginner. So we've got data by week for two types of soap, liquid and bar. We've got the sales value and volume for that. And we've also got some information about the profit and budget. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring all that data in and we're going to clean it up and we're going to join it together via some specific requirements, which I'll come back to as they become relevant. I won't be touching the budget data, so these two steps will be in the next video. So just so you know. So let's open Tableau Prep and click to our data. It's a Excel file, so it's probably going to most likely be in your downloads. So we can see that this Excel file has been brought in to the connections pane, and we've got a list of the sheet names here. So we've got a load of weekly data as well as this budget sheet as well, which we'll come to in a minute. So if we bring in a couple of the weekly data tables, then we can have a look at them to compare them. So this one has 4 fields. It has date, type, sales value, and sales volume, as does week 2 as well. So that's kind of telling us that each of these weekly sales information tables has the same fields. So if it's got the same fields, then we could kind of copy and paste that information below each other. We can stack these tables on top of one another. So the way that we do that is I'm just going to get rid of this week 2 data, and I'm going to click on the week 1 input. So we can see here, if I just put an extra step on there, that we've got 10 rows for week 1. Now, if we do a wildcard union, then this is what's going to stack each of those weekly sales tables on top of one another. So we're using this file here, this the one input file that we have, which is great. And then the sheets that we want to include in this wildcard union all begin with the word week. And then the star after that is going to mean only return these columns. Don't include the budget in this union. So we'll apply that and we'll hit apply again because we can see that's updated to just be the week files or the week tables, and we'll hit apply again, which is great. We may notice, so the first thing to notice is the little plus here, which is telling us that we're now doing that wildcard union in our input. And if we click on our sheet here, then we find out that we've now got 108 rows, which is great. But you may also notice that now we have 8 fields rather than 4. So before we only had date, type, sales volume, and sales value. But now we've also got an extra column for volume and an extra column for value. So this kind of tells us that maybe something's up. So obviously, we can see that there's a lot of nulls for our value and volume. We can see that by the length of this bar here. And if we click on all those times where it's null, then we can see highlighted over here, so the volume corresponding to the sales volume, that wherever it's null in the volume, it is a value in the sales volume field. And whenever this sales volume field is null, then it has a value in the volume field. So that's kind of suggesting that perhaps in week 7 and week 8, someone just named those columns wrong. They named them volume and value rather than sales value and sales volume. So let's just merge these two fields together. The way that we do that is we pick up our volume field and we just drag it on top of our sales volume field and we merge them together. Now we can see that we don't have any nulls left, so that's great. And we'll do the same for the value. And we'll merge those together, and great, that's already looking a lot better for us. Now the other 2 extra fields that we got brought through are the table names, which is useful because now we know what week those sales are referring to. And we also have the file path brought through, which, as it's the same for every single table, isn't that useful. So we'll delete this one from our data. Awesome. Now we're having a recommendation here. So let's have a look at what that says. It's saying that we should split up our this field into being just a field that has week and the other field would have the week numbers in them. That might be useful, but not sure yet. Let's hold off on doing that. Okay, so we've got our weekly information brought in. Let's see about this budget table now. So if we bring that in, then we're looking at our field names and we can see that they're all F1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not very useful. Let's have a look at the data itself. We notice that we've got a lot of nulls, and if we scroll down a bit, then where we've got week here, then we can see it goes through all the week numbers until it gets to type here. So that kind of almost looks like two different tables stacked on top of one another. Now, Tableau Prep has a great data interpreter that might help when we're cleaning our Microsoft Excel sheets. So no harm in giving it a go. Let's click the tick box here. And now we notice that we get these two extra tables in our input list. So if I just get rid of this budget information here and bring in these extra tables, then you can see that already we've got field names, which is great. Okay, let's have a look at this. I'm interested now. Okay, that is looking much more like data that we want to work with. So we've got the week numbers and the year 2020, as well as the product types and information about our profit. Okay, that looks great. Now we're thinking that, okay, that recommendation that Tableau Prep was trying to give us was actually quite useful to split out the number from the week, because then we can join it to this information down here. We don't actually want this week word to be repeated for every row, so we'll remove that field alongside this field here, because all that we actually need from this field is the number, the week number that we're on. So we'll remove those fields and we'll just rename this to be week. Okay, great. So if we come down here now, then we want to do a similar thing. Tableau Prep's not giving us a recommendation to do so, but we only want these week numbers. So we're going to do a split, and we're going to do a custom split. So the 2020 is being separated from our week number by an underscore. And we just want the last bit of this field, because we don't actually want the 2020 information. We know what year it is. We just want the week number for each of our rows. Okay, that's great as well. So let's get rid of this week column, and we'll just rename this column to be week. So this table is now looking quite tidy actually, and it looks like we should try and join it to our information from our sales information. So if we see that we're joining on the type, but also we want to join on the week number. So let's just bring those two in there. Now, one thing that we probably want to think about actually at this stage is that here we've got 16 rows. We've got 2 rows for each week, 1 row for each product type in that week. Whereas up here, we've also got a date field. So for each week, we've got quite a few rows associated with each week, basically, where we've got the types repeated multiple times because of this date. We've got information at the day level here, but the week level here. So probably what we're going to want to do actually is do an aggregation before this join. So let's just hover over in the middle of that bar there and insert an aggregate. So we're going to want to group by our week and our type, and we're going to just want to sum up our sales and our sales value and our sales volume, and leave behind the date, because we don't care what day of the week these sales happened, we just care about them at a weekly aggregate level. So now if we look at our join, we can see that we've got 16 rows, which is the same for both of our input to that join steps. which is great. But the way that we're wanting to join these two together, if we go back to our requirements, is actually to bring back information about products that have exceeded their profit minimums for both the value and the volume. So the way that we want to do that is we want to add some conditions to our join. And what we mean by that is that we want our sales value to be greater than our profit minimum sales value. And we want our sales volume to also be greater than our profit minimum sales volume. So now we've got 4 join clauses being applied, and that's left us now with only 6 rows. If we check our output, it's actually output number 2, then we can see that we are wanting to have 6 rows and 6 columns. So that's great, we've achieved that step. So all we need to do here is to remove a few of the columns. So we've got a duplicated week number here, a duplicated type here. So we'll just remove those 2 fields. And that's part 1 of this solution completed.